Well, if you know the musical alphabet, you don't really need to memorize. You can just kind of figure it out on the spot. And if you do it enough times, it becomes like second nature.
The last one she asked and the one she said she wanted to make sure we got to is about bar chords. So this is what she wrote. This is what she wrote. She said, bar chords, I'm just starting to use them. Are some chords only available by bar chord? I know chords are created in triads, but how do you know how to create those chords on the fretboard? Oh, well, there's actually a bunch here that's more than that, but let's just start with the first thing.
Yeah.
Are some chords only available via bar chord?
It's a really good question. I mean, there are so many different ways you can play almost any chord, and once you get more experience with the instrument, you see that. But yes, there are certain chords that the easiest way to play it, there's no open voicing for it, right? Like a G chord is an open chord, right? If you're doing an open G chord. But there are certain chords like, say, an F chord, or let's say B flat, right? You can't play a B flat in any way other than a bar chord when you're first learning. And there are certain chords like that in strange keys. They're normally like flats or sharps or things like that.
Why is that?
Because of the tuning of the guitar. So we have E, A, D, G, B, E. And so if we're doing the triads, as I think Maria asked, and it's great that you know that you build things in triads. Probably you play another instrument as well. That's great. There are certain triads you just can't build with those notes that have the combinations from the open strings. So the way that the guitar is tuned and set up, yes, they're only like mostly flat and sharp keys because they don't contain any of these notes. So like B flat, right? The notes in a B flat are B flat, D, and F, right? And so we do have the D there, but that's the only note that's in the chord that we could play with an open string.
So it's all about, you have to like move those around, and then how do you know that? So then this kind of ties into that, but she says, I know chords are created in triads, we already said.
Yeah.
But how do you know how to create those chords on the fretboard? How do you know which notes to press, or what? If it's a root 5 or root 6 chord, which fret number to bar? Do you just have to memorize these things, or is there a way to figure that out? So it looks like she's done some learning on her own, or had a teacher, and kind of has a lot of the pieces.
Yeah. One thing I'll just mention, Chris, I don't know if you're hearing, we're picking up some radio frequency or something.
Oh, yeah, it's not me. I don't think.
I don't know if it's me either.
I would say don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, okay.
Yeah, just keep going. It's fine.
It sounds like it's
live.
in Hebrew or
it's
something.
Live radio.
Yeah, no, it's very cool.
This is.
What I would say for the bar chord piece is, learn the bar chords for major and minor forms, right? And then learn the names of the notes across the fretboard. And then you can just use those shapes. And I would say do that for, all the chords you learn as you learn. Yeah,
Can
sure.
you give a specific example of that? Like, and Maria,
yeah, sure.
I'm watching the Facebook, the comments. So if you're in there and you have questions or you want to clarify, or you're happy, like, Right. Let us know. But
Great.
Can you make that a specific example?
Sure. Yeah.
So specific chord.
Let's take A. Right. Let's take the A open chord that we were just talking about. Now when we make a bar chord that starts on the A string, right? A string root. So we have the A string. We play it open. That's an A chord. If we were going to do an A string bar chord, we call it a bar chord because we're essentially taking that shape and moving it over. So, for example, the note after A in the musical alphabet would be A sharp or B flat, because those are the same. They're called enharmonic, right? A sharp and B flat are the same thing. They just have different names. So we could take this whole shape and shift it over with a bar chord, and now all of a sudden we have a B flat. Right? So we went from A to B flat. And the reason why we call it B flat, the shape is the same, but because the root note is B flat. Now, we can take that again. If I wanted to play B, right, B would be next in the musical alphabet because we have A sharp / B flat. Up to B, we move it to the 2nd fret. And then if we wanted to play C, even though we have a C open chord, maybe you're playing like a, alternative rock song or something and you want that bar chord sound. We have a C already, right?
Can I ask a question there?
Please,
kind of ties
please.
into her thing. So some of the words that she used in there was root 5 and root 6. Can you talk about how that ties into what you're doing there? That's a root 5 chord, right? And why is that called a root 5 chord?
Yeah, so I'm actually playing more than just a root 5. I'm playing the bar chord, which has the triad. It's just voiced in a way that works for the guitar. Root 5, I'm not sure if Maria means a power chord, which is just the root and the 5th. Right, then we don't have the sound of the 3rd in there. So this is with the 3rd.
Oh, I think what she probably means is a chord rooted on the 5th string, maybe.
Okay, that makes sense. So with a root on the 5th string. Yeah. Great. And then root 6. I get what you're saying. Thank you, Chris.
It might just be a different pedagogy of how to call it.
Yeah. So great. I think, I would call them A string root, and maybe that's root 5 because it gets its start in the A string. And I actually think that's helpful to refer to it as the name of the string, because then it orients you a little bit more, right?
Gotcha.
So if you know that it's an A string root, you're also keeping in the back of your mind that every time I play this open, I'm playing an A, right? And every time, what's after an A? B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, etc.
Maybe it'd be good to then transition and talk about kind of the other very, very common flavor of major bar chords, which is that are rooted on that E string. Can you talk about those and how those are related?
So remember, on the A string, we're basically taking the A shape and moving it over, and the bar is taking the place of what would be played like here, right? For the E string bar chords, you're basically taking the E shape, and what you're doing is rather than you're moving that E shape, but because we need something to take the place of the open strings, we have the bar. So this is E. Next in the musical alphabet after E, we have F. So that's an F bar chord. Next in the musical alphabet is an F sharp. Next we have a G. So those are just two options, right? G sharp, A sharp, B. And I think it's really useful to learn the notes on the fretboard. You can even start with the E and the A string. Learning the notes on the fretboard really opened up my world as a guitar player. Because
when was that? Do you remember? Like how long had you been playing before you kind of went through that exercise?
I think for me it was actually I'd learned all my chords, and I just kind of wanted to get a better sense of like if I wanted to play a song and I found not tabs but like a chord chart somewhere, how would I know if something was like, G sharp? So I would have to like count my way across the fretboard to know. Or I often found myself doing this. Let's say you're doing two bar chords. So when I was first playing, I might learn let's say there's a song that goes G sharp, C sharp, right? So I would find myself doing this. And it sounds pretty good.
That reminds me of like a Cars song, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, and you can do that for an effect, but it's also making so much more work for yourself because I'm sliding up 5 frets. And I thought to myself, there has to be an easier way of doing this. And there is, but I have to switch between 2 bar chords because there's a C sharp right under there. So rather than doing this, I could do this. And it's the same exact chords, right? It's just playing it in a more logical place, so I don't have to do as much work. If I want the sound of that, string sliding, right? Which,
sure.
Then I can always do that other option. But that was probably, I would say, like maybe a year or 2 into learning the guitar, where I wanted to play songs more easily.
Do you remember? I have 2 questions for you. One is, how did you do it? Like, do you remember how you, as however old you were, memorize the fretboard? And then the second question is, like, when you're working with students now, what do you tell them to do, basically? How do you teach them to do that?
There are 2 ways of going about it. So I think I took, I think I started working, no, I probably wasn't working with a teacher at that point, but what I decided to do was to learn all the names of the notes on the E and the A strings from the open to the 12th fret. And of course I took it to the 12th fret because after the 12th fret they all repeat, right? So E is the open string, 6th string open, and then you play the 12th fret, and it's E an octave higher. So I didn't have to learn all this stuff because I knew it just repeated. So I think I did it by rote, and just like I had some sort of a diagram that had E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, etc., and memorized it. But then a friend of mine told me, well, if you know the musical alphabet, you don't really need to memorize. You can just kind of figure it out on the spot, and if you do it enough times, it becomes like second nature. So rather than saying, looking at a chart for a week, I could just say E, F, what between F and G, there's another note, F sharp, G. And if I do that enough through like trial and error and playing, I just sort of got it.
I got you. And is that what you tell your students to do now?
I actually have them study the chart.
Oh, okay.
But some students who come from another instrument sure. and know the musical alphabet can just kind of do the work on the spot. And then I often give people exercises where I'll say, more like I'd say, intermediate students who like know their basic chords and know their basic scales, but really fretboard awareness is something they're still struggling with. So sometimes as a warm-up, I'll say, play 4 different G's on your guitar, right? And they'll do something like, and then I'll say, play 5 different G's, right? They're like, right? And then do it with some more obscure notes like A flat, until it becomes like second nature.
That's cool. We may as well move and keep going since that was we could keep going on bar chords. Maria, I'm going to move on to another one of your questions, but if you have any, if we didn't quite answer anything, or is there anything that you want Andres to talk about, let us know in the comments and I will ask it to him.